Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be talking about the Fantasy Football Week 5 running back starter sits. I'm basically going to be going over my 4 starts and my 4 sits at the running back position as we enter Week 5 of the Fantasy Football season. Now, to follow that, I will be going over my 1 through 36 rankings at the running back position to give you guys a better understanding of how I see Week 5 breaking down and how I see, players potentially going off, some of them potentially not going off this coming week. I mean, it all depends on the subject to change. When you bring out rankings, it's often difficult to stick with those rankings as the entire week goes on because injury news comes out, news when it comes to players getting less reps, losing jobs, getting cut, stuff like that. News comes out. It'll be subject to change for all of my rankings, but going forward, I think this is a pretty good rankings list for Week 5. So before we get into that, I just want to thank everybody for subscribing to my YouTube channel, continuously supporting, asking questions in the comment section, and putting likes on the videos. That really helps me, and I appreciate if all of you can continue to do that. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it, shall we? Hey, everybody, how's it going? Okay, so on the screen, my first 2 starts of the week, we have here good old Sony Michel and James Conner. Now, I mentioned Sony Michel as one of my starts of the week 2 weeks back in week 3 of the regular season. It was 1 week premature to Sony Michel breaking out. It only took Rex Burkhead to go onto the IR. Rest in peace. I'm sorry, Rex Burkhead. You were the sacrificial lamb within that offense to get everything going. And Sony Michel had himself quite the week in week 4. Now, we knew that the Patriots had to have a bounce back week, right? I thought James White would be the only running back, having an exponential growth in production. But man, Sony Michel had himself quite the week. With 25 carries logged in on the ground, Sony Michel was able to produce 112 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. So the yards per attempt is 4.5 that in week 4's matchup against the Miami Dolphins. Sony Michel had himself a fantastic week. Now, something to point out, Sony Michel did not have a single target or reception. So the way the Patriots are going to go forward within this offense is to have James White as the premium receiving back. There will be no opportunities for Sony Michel, maybe a couple here and there, but they're going to use him as the first and second down back going forward. And within a Patriots offense that's going to get down the field, I like Sony Michel, especially this week on Thursday Night Football. I know it's a short week, but they play against a defense that is not great. They play against the Indianapolis Colts defense that has been giving up a lot of points in the past couple of weeks. And I think Sony Michel is going to have a great week. Start him up. Number 2, or my second start of the week, we've got James Conner. I understand the news that have been coming out with Le'Veon potentially coming back in week 7. But this week against the Atlanta Falcons, the Pittsburgh Steelers, this game is going to it's going to come down to the wire, right? People are going to have to score continuously. Every drive, you're going to have to at least get 3 points in order to win this game, right? The Falcons have consistently been putting up points in the last 3 weeks, yet their record is 1-3, right? The Atlanta Falcons are struggling. They need to find a victory. The Pittsburgh Steelers have been struggling at 1-2-1. They are struggling. Both of these defenses are not great, and I think what Giovanni Bernard and the Cincinnati Bengals were able to produce against the Atlanta Falcons on the ground last week, they need to establish the run game in Pittsburgh. I think James Conner, despite all the news that has come out about Le'Veon Bell, they're still going to use him and try to establish a run game because they need to do so in order to open up the offense for Ben Roethlisberger, right? You can't come out and throw the ball 3 consecutive times, right? Some offenses are capable of doing so, right? But the Pittsburgh Steelers offense has never been that kind of a team. They've always relied upon the run game and their big, strong Pro Bowl offensive line. DeCastro, Foster, Villanueva, Pouncey, and Gilbert, that offensive line gets off the block, and they they maul you. That's the entire point of this Steelers offense, right? They're going to maul you up front, and then they've got their big three, Antonio Brown, Ben Roethlisberger, and usually Lev Bell. But I see James Conner this week, who has had good weeks in the past, right? This last week, obviously, his number of attempts have been going down. They don't really use him that much in the passing game, even though he has decent amount of targets. Lev Bell would have had double the amount of targets by now, right? Against Baltimore, he only had 9 attempts on the ground for 19 yards. That is unacceptable. That is honestly just gruesomely terrible. And I see the Pittsburgh Steelers turning to the run game this week against the Atlanta Falcons in order to establish an offense. I see James Conner having himself a good week. All right, my last 2 starts of the week. We got here Derrick Henry and Matt Breida. Now, I have been quoted to say in the past that Derrick Henry, I don't trust him anymore. He's a garbage can, right? Whew. I'm giving you a chance, Derrick Henry. This is the week you get to play against the Buffalo Bills defense, who has been giving up a lot of points on the ground. Okay, they even let Green Bay Packer running backs have a good day. Aaron Jones had a good day last week, and that's saying a lot because because Green Bay Packer running backs are not the greatest, right? That offense is not built to continuously run the ball, yet they were able to find success. The way I see it, the production of Derrick Henry as of late has been going up, right? Just to give you a quick update on it. So in week, oh my goodness, wait, hold up. Perhaps, what happened last week? Never mind. They didn't even run the ball last week. Because in weeks 1, right, he had his 10 rushing attempts, 26 yards. That was terrible, right? Week 2 against Houston, 18 rushing attempts for 56 yards. All right, that's still not great. Week 3, 18 rushing attempts again for 57 yards. Now, in week 4 against the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I told you guys last week that he was not going to be able to run the ball and that you shouldn't be looking to start Dion Lewis either. Because that Philadelphia, front 7 is nothing to mess around with, right? That defensive line is absolutely ridiculous. He did not have a great game. He went 8 attempts for 24 rushing yards, 2 targets, 2 receptions, and 7 yards. Now, you might be thinking, okay, he was terrible. You're playing against Buffalo. The Buffalo defense is going to give you some favors. They're going to let you do what you want. Sometimes the Buffalo defense gets after it, and they're able to make some plays. I see Derrick Henry as a sneaky start this week. I see him being able to be at least somewhat productive, right? They're going to have many opportunities. Marcus Mariota's back. This offense isn't going to be stagnant. They're not going to only run the ball, but I see the run game actually working. They've got a great offensive line themselves. I like Derrick Henry this week. We've got Matt Breida as my last start of the week. Man, Matt Breida, you have yourself a great opportunity just like Derrick Henry, right? But will you act upon it? This last week, Matt Breida, fighting through his little quad injury, whatever the heck it was, he was questionable for majority of the week, came out, did not play well against the LA Chargers, had 40 yards. And actually, he had a better week than Derrick Henry, let's put it that way, right? Because Breida is more of a, I would say, change of pace back. He can end up plugging up holes and running it up the middle while also being a back that can, you could toss it on the outside. You can pass him the ball down the field. You don't have to worry about Matt Breida being a, one-dimensional running back. This past week, what did he have? 70 total yards. That's not bad on 3 receptions and only 12 touches the entire game, 70 yards. That's pretty good production again. This coming week, Matt Breida plays against the defense that gives up the most points to the running back position. They play the Arizona Cardinals, who just got gashed by Mike Davis, of all people, on the ground. Alfred Morris is not a worry. Matt Breida this coming week should start, must start. He has produced. He has been, a top 5 rusher in the NFL for the last couple of weeks for a reason. Matt Breida is going to be able to do some stuff. CJ Beathard's not that bad. So that kind of helps Matt Breida even that much more because this offense is going to move the ball. They're not going to be able to go 3 and out every single time, right? So I like Breida this coming week as one of my starts of the week. Now let's get to the depressing sits of the week, the unfortunates. Okay, so there are two different prospects here. We have Lamar Miller on my left, and we got Kenyan Drake on my right. Okay, so here's the deal. Okay, I have two different scenarios or situations here. We have Lamar Miller, who has not been playing up to his potential. Okay, I'm not saying you should absolutely sit him. I'm just giving you a warning. Okay, here's the thing about Lamar Miller's stats as of late. Okay, let me go ahead and read these to you. They kind of sound like Derrick Henry stats, to be honest, right? This past week, he had 14 attempts on the ground for only 49 yards. He had no targets or receptions in the passing game. Now, on top of that, Lamar Miller was almost out-carried by Alfred Blue, who had 13 carries himself. Now, I'm not saying Alfred Blue is going to be the starting running back of this Texans team, but there is obviously an issue when Lamar Miller is not getting the bulk of the carries. That means he could have had 27 rushes, right? Why not give this man 27? Give him 27 attempts with the ball. Excuse me, I don't know where I'm going with that. Why not give him the attempts? Well, maybe because the Texans honestly just don't believe that he's capable of producing. He hasn't produced as of late, right? So in this past week, only 49 yards rushing. The week prior, on 10 carries, only had 10 yards. It's pretty much, oh my goodness. The week prior to that, right? 14 carries, 68 yards, right? On the ground, he's not fantastic. They need to use him more in the passing game. This is just a warning, okay? For those of you who own Lamar Miller, if you are worried, I'm not surprised because Lamar Miller is not playing up to the standard that he needs to be playing to. They play against the Cowboys defense this week, who are, in all seriousness, honestly, the Cowboys defense can stop the run. They can stop the pass. They can play. Okay, they were able to hold the Detroit Lions this past week, and the Detroit Lions did not play bad at all. They were able to hold them to a pretty low amount of points, 24 points. That's, all things considered, that's a success with all the weapons that the Lions have with Kerryon Johnson, Theo Riddick, LeGarrette Blount out of that backfield. And then also that Golden Tate, Marvin Jones, Kenny Galladay trifecta with Matthew Stafford. All things considered, the Cowboys aren't messing around over there. I'm just going to say it. Just be careful with Lamar Miller going forward. I'm not saying completely sit him, but just be careful. Now, on the other side, the other situation we have here with Mr. Kenyan Drake, absolutely sit him. He should never come off of your bench. Literally, he needs to have like 4 weeks of 10 points in order to be able to be trusted. He needs to honestly have some fantastic fantasy weeks, and I don't think we're going to see that anytime soon. The fact of the matter is, Kenyan Drake is not even getting opportunities within this backfield. Let me just read this for you. Here it is. Kenyan Drake in the last 2 weeks has had 8 rushing attempts. In the last 2 weeks, only 8 rushing attempts. So what happened after those first 2 weeks? See, in week 1 against the Tennessee Titans, he had 14 carries for 48 yards and 18 receiving yards. No big deal. Okay. That's an average game. No big deal. Lamar Miller kind of stats. Derrick Henry kind of stats. And then against the New York Jets in week 2, 11 carries, 53 yards, and a touchdown with 17 receiving yards. Great. He only touched the ball 15 times, but was able to at least put up 70 total yards and a touchdown. Great. Fantastic. Then he turns it around against Oakland and New England and only touches the ball on the ground a total of 8 times rushing and 3 times receiving. What happened? I don't know what it is. I don't know what Adam Gase is seeing at practice. I don't know if he's injured or something stupid. Maybe they honestly think 35-year-old Frank Gore is better than him. And if that's the case, no matter what it is, Kenyan Drake cannot start on your team. He is dead in the water. I mean, goodness gracious, he has to sit on your bench. You can potentially drop him. Yes, you could. But I think I commented on a question earlier this morning. Someone asked me, what do I do with Kenyan Drake? And I said, I'd rather see Kenyan Drake on my bench getting 1 point every single week than I drop him on the waivers and he starts putting up 15 a week. Because honestly, that kind of shit happens to me. So going forward, he's got to sit on your bench. All right, the last 2 guys I want to talk about. Oh, my God. Okay, so, again, this is 2 different scenarios, right? These sits are not because they're just bad at football. No, they're not bad at football. Leonard Fournette can't stay healthy, right, which will give TJ Yeldon opportunity. And the fact of the matter is, Leonard Fournette is just He's been the biggest bust thus far. He's a bigger, you might as well have just drafted Mark Ingram. You might as well have just drafted him because that is what we've gotten out of him. We got 5 suspended weeks of Leonard Fournette doing nothing because this week I don't think he's going to play. Even if he does play by some miracle, I wouldn't start him. Why? Because he's going to get injured again. And it's not going to be good for your fantasy team. You cannot rely upon this guy. I've heard many of your questions asking, should I trade him? Yes or no, etc., etc. At this point, I don't know how much value you can get out of him, but I would just bite the bullet, just like all the Le'Veon Bell owners have done. Just bite the bullet and hold on to him. Hope you have TJ Yeldon. Unless you can just trade him and get something good out of it. I don't know. Just depends on your league. And the last guy I want to talk about, as I said, Nick Chubb. Guys, don't bite into it. Do not buy into it. Okay, he had a great week. Congratulations. On 3 carries, he had 2 touchdowns and 100 rushing yards. Unsustainable. He might get a couple extra carries, but honestly, out of the backfield for the Browns, it's going to be Carlos Hyde and Duke Johnson. I'd rather start Duke Johnson this week than Nick Chubb. Plain and simple. It's not even close. Do not touch this guy. He is a landmine, to say the least. Okay, so before we go into the rankings, understand that, as I mentioned before, I think rankings are subject to change, and there's a potential that guys get hurt, or I like another, let's say, for example, I have Tevin Coleman at 17. He might end up at 11 by the end of the week. I don't know. We'll just see. Maybe Ito Smith gets hurt, and this will give him more production. Maybe Devontae Freeman comes back. Boom. Tevin Coleman's dropping on the rankings list. You never know. But either way, right now, as of Tuesday, October 2nd, these are my rankings. We've got Todd Gurley at 1, playing against the Seattle Seahawks this week. He's going to have quite the game, to be honest. Just like any other game Todd Gurley has. There's never going to be a disappointing game. Todd Gurley is a consistent 20-point-a-week kind of guy. That's what he did all of last year, and that's what he's continuing to do with his Rams offense that just mauls teams, plain and simple. Enough said. That's all I need to say. Todd Gurley, my number 1 this week. My number 2, we've got Melvin Gordon playing against the Oakland Raiders. Melvin Gordon right now, I think he's the 4th best running back in half-point PPR scoring leagues as of total points scored. Excuse me. And he's a guy that wasn't taken until, mid-first round, maybe even late in specific leagues. He is an absolute monster. He's been producing. Even with Austin Ekeler taking carries, it does not matter. Melvin Gordon is the number 1 option within this offense, especially with Keenan Allen being a little banged up and Mike Williams just being an absolute bum this past week. Melvin Gordon just keeps finding himself opportunities to score the football and score your fantasy points, or score your team some fantasy points. He's my number 2. Number 3, David Johnson. All right, David Johnson, congratulations. You've made your way back up to 3. This is somewhere you had yourself before the season started. Now, what I need you to do, David Johnson, is I need you not to mess this up, please, okay? The good old Cardinals play the San Francisco 49ers this week. Now, the 49ers, they got the work from Melvin Gordon this past week. All we have to do is feed the ball to David Johnson. Feed him the ball. Take the ball out of your rookie's hands, Josh Rosen, and feed David Johnson the ball. He had a great week this past week. Could have been better, right? He's going to continuously get better. David Johnson is a top-tier elite running back. He's going to go ahead and prove it this week. He's my number 3. Number 4, Ezekiel Elliott. Now, again, rankings are subject to change. Perhaps there's a point where they say Ezekiel Elliott is out for week 5. I 100% doubt that. Okay, if that happens, my fantasy team loses this week. But let's say, for example, it doesn't. Zeke's healthy. He's playing this week. All is well. The Dallas Cowboys have themselves quite the matchup. They play against a defense that could not stop Andrew Luck and the bum receivers of the Colts. So the way I see it, I think the Texans have a pretty good chance of scoring some points, but defensively, they haven't looked great. Ezekiel Elliott this past week, getting the bulk of the touches, leading the team in rushing and receiving. They're going to try to stop him at all costs. That's the Texans' number 1 thing. is to stop Ezekiel Elliott. If you're going to allow that, Dak Prescott's going to be able to pick you apart a little bit. And then eventually, you're going to have to ease up. Here comes Zeke. He's my number 4 this week. Whew. I mean, God, Zeke is so good. Just got to stay healthy, and you got to be able to open up the offense so they stop stacking the box. And even then, the offensive line of those Cowboys, they keep running their people over. All right, number 5, Saquon Barkley. I mean, can I say enough about this guy? Every week, he just keeps doing it. He had that garbage time touchdown this past week, but I'll take it. Who cares? That's all you want in fantasy football. You want garbage time touchdowns like Blake Bortles ends up doing every week. But Saquon Barkley playing against the Carolina Panthers this week, it doesn't matter who he plays. He is an absolute monster, being able to transition to the NFL in the way that he has so quickly. He's unstoppable at some points. This dude has bigger thighs almost than Maurice Jones-Drew. He's not as stocky, but still, he's got them thighs. He's got the thighs that'll cross your eyes. He got the shakes that'll make you quake. And he's got the burgers. If you don't know who that is, it's Cheeseburger Eddie's quote. If you know who that is, thank you very much. Okay, number 6, Alvin Kamara. Now, why isn't Alvin Kamara any higher? Well, I honestly think that Melvin Gordon, excuse me. Where did I get Melvin Gordon? Let me tell you where I got Melvin Gordon from, okay, really quickly. We have Mark Ingram, then we have Melvin Ingram, and then we have Melvin Gordon. Boom, there it is. Full circle, people. Anyway, I really think Mark Ingram is going to be able to produce within this offense. They are going to give him touches. Is it going to completely diminish Alvin Kamara's value? No. Alvin Kamara is an animal, right? But it's going to affect him a little bit, right? He has to now share some carries. There's someone that is going to perhaps eat a touchdown off of his points list, on the goal line, maybe first, second down after a big run. Alvin Kamara comes out of the game, takes a breather, gets some water, hangs out for a little bit, and then all of a sudden, Mark Ingram scoring a touchdown. Just saying, Mark Ingram, he's had these last couple weeks off. He's fresh. He's healthy. He's ready to run the ball, people. All right, number 7. I pretty much was talking about Mark Ingram the entire time there, even though it's Alvin Kamara. But now from here on out, you got to talk about them hand in hand because that's the situation that they are in. Number 7, number 7, we have Christian McCaffrey. Coming off of a bye week, and the week prior against the Bengals had 184 rushing yards on 28 carries. I mean, they're going to keep feeding him the ball if he keeps doing what he's doing. He plays against the Giants this week, who, all things considered, gave up a lot of fantasy points to good old Alvin Kamara last week. 38.6, if I'm not mistaken, in half-point PPR scoring leagues. Christian McCaffrey is going to have himself a week, as he usually does, especially in PPR scoring. Before the season started, he was my number 10 running back going into the 2018 season. He's producing like he's a top 10 running back, and he's going to continue to do so. Start him up, fire him up. Number 8, Kareem Hunt. Had himself a game. That's the Kareem Hunt we want to see, right? We want to see the Kareem Hunt that's given the ball, given the opportunity, given the goal line carries. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes did the option, took the ball into the end zone. Could have been another touchdown for Kareem Hunt, right? But Kareem Hunt looked good. Hopefully, Andy Reid does not shy away from it. This kind of similar thing happened last season, right? Where for the first 7 games of the season, Kareem Hunt was on fire. And then he just starts taking carries away from Kareem Hunt on a weekly basis. I think hopefully he's learned from his mistake. I like Kareem Hunt this week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. If the Jaguars are weak at any position, it's stopping the run, okay? Saquon was able to exploit that in week 1. The last couple weeks, there really haven't even been games, right? The Jets are not an offense that you can potentially, compete with, right? That Jacksonville defense is going to clamp on them the entire time, right? In week 3 against the Tennessee Titans, okay, congratulations. You played against the Mariota that couldn't throw the ball, and you played against, Derrick Henry. All you have to do is stack the box against them. You'll take care of them, right? So far, yes, they may look good, but I think they're pretty weak at that interior stopping the run area. I don't know. Like with Tevin Coleman and Miles Jack being such cover linebackers, they're never going to step up to just fill gaps, as consistently as like Paul Posluszny used to do, right? But as of right now, the Calais Campbell, the Yannick Ngakoue, the Malik Jackson. They want to just pass rush. I don't see these guys as guys that are just going to sit and fill gaps and wait for their linebackers to make plays. They've never been. These are playmaking defensive linemen. They're going to make plays. But in the run game, I think Kareem Hunt's going to take care of it. Number 9, it's either going to be Bernard or Mixon. Whoever ends up starting this week, you're my number 9. I think it's going to be Bernard because Bernard's been playing out of his mind as of late. And they might be thinking, well, maybe we need to keep Mixon out for another week, keep him healthy, etc., etc. But whichever one of these running backs ends up starting, they're my number 9. Number 10, James Conner, one of my starts of the week, going into week 5 of the regular season. James Conner, I mean, he has the opportunity. The Falcons defense gave up a lot of points on the ground to good old, Giovanni Bernard this past week. Let's see, Giovanni Bernard, 70 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, and on top of it, Giovanni Bernard had 4 receptions, 27 receiving yards. There is an opportunity for James Conner to establish himself this week. He's got to do it before Le'Veon comes back. He's got to be able to produce. I like him this week as my number 10. Number 11, Marshawn Lynch. Man, does Marshawn look like a young man or what? Look at this. 20 rushes for 130 yards, 6.5 yards per carry. I mean, I understand the Raiders' offensive line is nothing to mess around with, but Marshawn Lynch is running around like he didn't retire for that 1 year. Honestly, he's looking great, and the Raiders' offense hopefully can start picking it up because Marshawn Lynch is continuously producing in fantasy. He's a for sure start going forward. Number 12, my second start of the week, Sony Michel. He's going to be a top 12 running back going forward because the opportunity within this offense, and I think with what he was able to do this past week against the Miami Dolphins defense, that yes, I understand. They didn't look great, but they are a good defense. They are a good team. Sony Michel has my number 12 spot. I like him this week. Number 13, Carlos Hyde. Don't believe in the Nick Chubb BS. Duke Johnson's going to get a couple receptions out of the backfield here and there, right? But Carlos Hyde is going to continue to do what he does. He scores fantasy points, and he runs the ball hard for the Browns. I like him at 13. Number 14, Chris Thompson coming off of a bye week, going to play against the good old Saints. I like him this week because it is what it is. Alex Smith likes to throw the ball to the running back position. He has found Chris Thompson to be his number 1 wide receiver. This past, in week 3, there wasn't really much of a connection between Chris Thompson and Alex Smith, but coming off the bye week, they're going to find a way to exploit this pretty sketchy Saints defense. I like Chris Thompson this week at 14. Number 15, Aaron Jones. He showed me enough, and I hopefully think that he's shown the Packers coaches enough to where they can just give him the backfield to himself. I understand Jamal Williams will get some touches here and there, and so will Ty Montgomery, but Aaron Jones is the better running back in that backfield. And going forward, I think he's going to be able to just plow it over and take over this backfield and hopefully have as much of the production as possible. They play against the Detroit Lions, who is not a good team against the run. Okay, Ezekiel Elliott proved that. Michel should have proved it the week before. But they are not great against the run. The Packers will have their opportunities to run the ball, especially with them trying to keep the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands. I like Aaron Jones this week. Number 16, I have Ajayi. I mean, doesn't matter who is Wendell Smallwood, who is Darren Sproles, who is Clement. Doesn't matter. It's the Ajayi show. As long as he's healthy, he is a top 16 back. I like him at number 16 this week. Tevin Coleman, my number 17, hasn't been playing well. And there's a potential that Devontae Freeman comes back. Now, if that is the case, there's going to be a problem for Tevin Coleman owners because he's going to have to go sit on your bench. But if Devontae Freeman is injured this week again, I like him in the matchup. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game between the two, the Falcons and the Steelers. I mean, the Steelers' defense did not look good the other night. And I think Tevin Coleman, if given the opportunity, I understand Ito Smith is getting some carries there because Sark is an asshole. But if he has the opportunity, he can be a good running back going forward, especially in the passing game. He is a sneaky PPR running back, but he just needs the opportunity. I don't understand why they've taken away opportunity from him, right? How many receptions does he have? Guess what? He had 3 receptions, 26 yards. It should be more, Tevin Coleman can produce more. We just got to give him a couple more opportunities here and there. And he's never, just the honest reason why Tevin Coleman isn't just a little bit higher is because he got that touchdown poached, or not poached, but yeah, kind of poached. It was poached away from him on the 5-yard line by Ito Smith. If he had scored that touchdown, he would have had a great week in fantasy. I'd be like, all right, start him up. We're really confident. But the fact that Devontae Freeman is just around the corner and Ito Smith is already, chomping at the bit to get some more carries scares me a little bit with that running back situation. Number 18, we have Adrian Peterson. The last time we saw him, he was scorching the good old Green Bay Packers defense. If they feed him the ball like the way that they're supposed to, he's going to be successful. I like him at number 18. Number 19, Phillip Lindsay. What can't this guy do? He literally goes and gets himself ejected, and then the coach is like, all right, no big deal. Next week you get all the carries. Who's Royce Freeman? Royce Freeman, you looked good running the ball? Doesn't matter. We're going to give Phillip Lindsay some more carries. What? We can't ignore it at this point, right? Phillip Lindsay continues to get carries, and he continues to produce. He's my number 19 this week. Number 20, we have good old TJ Yeldon, because I am 100% assuming that Leonard Fournette is out this week. And even if he does not, let's say he plays, okay? That's even better. Go ahead and start TJ Yeldon anyway, because he's going to get hurt and end up on the sideline by the end of the game. Number 21, James White. Just about the same rank as I had him last week, right? I think he's going to be just as good. He's going to be a 10-point plus guaranteed this week against a defense that's not great. They're going to continue to use James White. He had the most targets and receptions this past week against the Dolphins. He's a vital part of this offense. Do not ignore James White. Number 22, my other start of the week, we have Matt Breida versus the Arizona Cardinals defense. As I mentioned before, the Cardinals have given up the most points to the running back position thus far in the 2018 fantasy football season. Matt Breida is a good running back. Alfred Morris is a bum. They're going to feed Breida the ball. They're going to be able to move the ball, and hopefully he's going to have himself a breakout game again. Number 23, Mark Ingram. As I mentioned before with, talking about Alvin Kamara, you can't ignore this guy. If you own him, you must start him. He probably should have been one of my starts of the week, but I'm just going to reserve that for maybe after he pops off this week. I see him being used, maybe 10 carries, maybe a couple receptions, maybe 12 total touches. That's where I see him being used as of right now. They're going to ease him into it, but he's still going to have some fantasy value because he's still a good running back behind a great offensive line. 24, my last start of the week, we have Derrick Henry. I'm honestly believing he's going to have a good game. Now, the only thing that's stopping him, I would say, it's the defense. No. It's Dion Lewis. If Dion Lewis finds himself, some opportunities here and there, gets some catches out of the backfield, and then this game turns into a stalemate, they're not going to use Derrick Henry anymore. But the way I see it, they're going to get up early. They're going to try to kill clock. Who they're going to put in? They're going to put in Derrick Henry. He's going to just eat clock and eat up some fantasy points, get some yards. I like Derrick Henry at 24 this week. We have 25, Kerryon Johnson. He's been producing well. Fantasy-wise, he's great. He's not going to have another 100-yard game for a while, but if he keeps being that goal line back, getting those touchdowns, getting the attempts, I like him. He's 25. Number 26, Lamar Miller. Be careful, guys. Just saying. He's probably a start for many of your fantasy teams because, what other options, do you have? You probably don't have any other options. You've got guys on bye week, Jordan Howard, Tariq Cohen, Peyton Barber, who's a bum. But either way, you have other guys that are on bye weeks. You don't have any other options. Lamar Miller is a start for many of you. That's why I have him at 26 this week. I don't think he's going to be 0 points, but I think you should just calm down on the expectations. Expect to only get 8 fantasy points, even in half-point PPR. He could be better, but he hasn't shown much. Number 27, Dion Lewis. Speaking of the Dion Lewis effect, he's not far behind, people, because he keeps finding ways to score points in the passing game where they like him. That's why they brought him in, to be that change of pace back, be able to play third downs. He's produced well so far. I like him against the Buffalo Bills. Just like what the Chargers were able to do. They were able to produce with Melvin Gordon and Austin Ekeler all in one game against the Buffalo Bills. I see the Titans finding some success with both running backs. Number 28, Dalvin Cook. Okay, so here's the thing. He's going to play this week. He's going to be healthy, but the problem is they play against the Eagles. This is a bad week for him, right? The Eagles' defensive line is nothing to mess around with. I don't think he's going to have much of a game. Now, this is another opportunity for after this week, you can go and trade for him, because as soon as that timer is done and where Dalvin Cook begins to produce and has 15-point weeks back-to-back, there's going to be no more option to go for him, okay? So trade for him while you can get him low for very little value. Number 29, Austin Ekeler. Speaking of Austin Ekeler, I mean, you can't ignore him. I think if I'm not mistaken, as of right now, half-point PPR, he is a top 10 running back in fantasy scoring. What an absolute animal. He's my number 29. Number 30, Alex Collins. Why do I have Collins and Javoris Allen this low? Well, I don't know who's going to be the premier back, because Alex Collins, yes, he scored a touchdown this past week, but he also fumbled on the 1-yard line. And the last time I saw Alex Collins fumble, his job was almost gone. Okay, Javoris Allen showed up and just started taking carries left and right last season. So the way I see it, I'm just going to wait. One of these guys is going to get the carries. I'd probably be safer with Javoris Allen this coming week. Number 32, LeSean McCoy. God, LeSean McCoy, please figure it out, man. This offense got completely shut out. They couldn't do jack. They're playing against the Tennessee Titans defense, which is it's a pretty tough opponent in itself. So good luck, LeSean McCoy, but I believe in you to at least have some sort of fantasy value. He's my number 32. Number 33, Bilal Powell. Was still able to be relevant in the passing game against the Jacksonville Jaguars last week, what I expected him to be able to do. I'm telling you, people, I'm telling you, Bilal Powell will eventually be the starting running back of this team. Isaiah Crowell will eventually disappear. Number 34, Royce Freeman, a guy we can't ignore, continues to play well. Hopefully, the Denver Broncos will see the light and they will feed this man the ball. But until then, it's Phillip Lindsay show, and we're just the spectators hoping that everything goes right. These are my rankings. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you liked my content, please go down, subscribe for more content. We're coming out daily videos, rankings, injury videos, waiver wire pickups. I'm answering questions in the comment section. Anyway, if you like this video, subscribe, like, comment below. And until next time, I want to thank all of you again, and I'll see you guys.